Now we are talking about training recognition and certification, both at national or international European level. It is my pleasure to moderate this session and to have together with me the representatives of the training institutions from different countries, and also to have the representative of European Prison Training Academies here by Ms. Laura Kikas, which is the head. She is the president this year of EPTA. I will let the other people, when there will be their time for present, to speak and to present themselves. So, Laura, the floor is yours.
Is it? Yeah, it's working already. I'm speaking from here. It's a challenge to be the last panel of the day. Let us be amusing then. No pressure to anybody. Yeah, I come from Estonia, College of Justice in the Ministry of, we are in the Academy of Security Sciences. Representing EPTA here, just to say on the background that I come from the country where we give for 30 years, more than 30 years, bachelor degree on corrections. 20 years vocational education to be a prison officer. More than 7 years approximately, we have additional vocational educational curriculums for already working prison officers. And we are responsible for all the in-service training, starting from initial training when somebody enters to the service and all the continuous ones. So we have the whole package regarding the European different angles, but everybody comes, we have the whole package. I could talk about this for days, I think, because I'm mostly very anxious to talk about our mistakes, what we have done during those 30 years. And in the process, and I'm saying when in the morning it was said that maybe national institutions can't make any mistakes, so I disagree totally. We are all human, even the people, even the civil servants are human beings, and we do mistakes. And we learn from our mistakes, what we have made, the decisions maybe. So it's all about acknowledging that maybe some development, what we have done in between, wasn't exactly what we expected. Let's turn over and start a new thing. So, but I have 10 minutes, yes, and I try to focus on the European level more right in this it's not a speech, it's like more of a discussion I would like to have, but I know that there is quite little time. It was told already before during the day many things about our varieties, what we are in Europe, the differences and similarities. Not talking about Estonia today a lot, but mentioning also that we are a little bit different again. We are small. The oldest prison building is 20 years old. We don't have those century-old buildings anymore. We have a lot of free space in the prison. We don't have overcrowding problem. We have very young staff members because of different approaches what we have done. There are always buts. They are leaving quite quickly, as it was mentioned before, that you have to tackle the right persons. At the same time, we have aging problem of inmates. So the prisoners are aging because those long sentences, what were maybe done 20 years ago, those people are still in prison. The young are not coming into prison. So the crowd with whom we are working is aging. And when we are talking about the age of the prison officer, then I would say that young isn't always the answer, because young person doesn't have that life experience, maybe what the prisoner expects. They have different perspectives of understanding the life and the principles, and this might be a challenge too. But enough about Estonia, coming to more umbrella thing. This is very important project regarding Europe community of prison services and prison service training institutions, I think, because it was mentioned even in the last panel several times that we are very different. The education and the training is very different. The people who are entering to be as a prison officers are very different. So I think that this is a very good landmark regarding European point of view here, and my compliments to the project team regarding that all the outcomes that you have written it down so clearly that we understand maybe much better what is the, can I say, minimum level, what we try to achieve. Maybe not all of the countries are on that minimum level, but at least it should be where we want to head ourselves. What else I would like to say regarding this project and all the European community when we are talking about education and prison officers of nowadays. There are many challenges, but I think that we all here in this room and all the events we are going, and every day on daily basis working in prison, we are the representatives of the prison service and prison officers, and we are the best ambassadors of the service. So if we think positive about the possibilities, what we can achieve, where we can go, then it goes smoothly to the crowd and population in general also. The other thing is what I truly believe, that everybody here is responsible for the, not of tomorrow, what we achieve tomorrow, but what we achieve the day after tomorrow. So we have to think out of the box. What are the solutions? And not concentrate on the problems of nowadays. Of course, we have to deal with today's problems also in the prison service, regarding the prison officers, education and everything, but we have to think further. We have to think what will be there in the future, because education and training and changing the process is a long process. If we don't think about the future today, tomorrow is late. We are already reacting to the past or the current situation, what is there. So, and I'm quite naive regarding all the 20 plus years in the prison service. I'm still quite naive, thinking that change is possible and everything is possible if we do believe in and we try to think what might work, what can I do to change? I don't know the impression about the profession or other things. So I think that this project is very valuable regarding EPTA community also. I think and I truly hope that we can cooperate further. I had like tens of ideas of further projects today already, or where to go further. I hope that we can share the knowledge, what you have gained here on the EPTA platforms also to the other members who haven't been engaged, because there are some really valuable lessons, materials, and outcomes in this project. So when we are talking about education and recognition and certification, then one thing what I was reading through before coming here is, one thing is what are the Council of Europe recommendations regarding prison officers and prisons. The other thing is there are recommendations about education also. And I think that the future might be for us, for all of us, that we take those recommendations also in consideration when we do further things. Why? Because then it's easier to acknowledge different countries, different approaches. I'm already looking here, knowing that everybody has different approaches. When we are taking those educational recommendations also into account, it would be easier to acknowledge the training, maybe the European training, in different countries and adapt and certificate that in different countries' frame of law, whatever it is there. But what does say Council of Europe recommendations about education? They say a lot of things, but the key things, maybe I will just remark here, that the curriculums must be student-centered. They have to be written student-centered way, and they have to be built up based on intended learning outcomes. Not the topics, what are relevant, but intended learning outcomes way. This would make easier for everybody to accept all the curriculums. The curriculums must include internship regarding European Council recommendations, and the curriculums must have possibility to study at workplace. So, and of course, there is also recommendation of lifelong learning, and of course there is the digital and nowadays ways of learning. So these are the 5 main things what have to be considered regarding Council of Europe educational recommendations. And I think when we turn to this, this is very easy to do on every country. I would send people to learn, to study in Portugal, and I can recognize the education in Estonia also in that way. I know that the time is up. There are still 2 more pages, but okay, I will leave it for the dinner.
Yes, thank you very much.
And you have to listen to me then.
Thank you very much, Laura. Okay, I will pass to Mr. Sven Erik Skotte. He represents Cruise, and yeah, we know each other for quite a long time.
Therein, I hope you allow me a little joke, not on your expense, but I think you executed the role as devil advocate so good that the devil just fired his advocate and he will probably hire you as his new one. You also mentioned a fairy tale. Well, maybe here comes the fairy tale. I hope you don't fall asleep, because fairy tales is something you tell your children when they are going to sleep. So I hope I will keep you awake.
You can use this.
Yeah. The last panel talked about the profile of a prison officer, and I just want to emphasize that that profile is already there. And the profile, it's not national, it's not European, it's actually global. The legislations which I'm referring on these slides, it's the European prison rules, it's a recommendation regarding training, and you have also the Nelson Mandela rules, or the United Standards or minimum treatment of prison officers. So the profile is already there. And I think the project which have been presented for us today just goes straight in to this national and worldwide recommendation. Because what is stressed is that the work of a prison officer, and it's also a correctional officer. In Norway, our service, it's called a correctional service. So the prison office or the prison service and probation service is merged into one. So when we educate now, we still talk about the prison officer education, but we actually now in Norway educate staff to work also as practitioners within probation service. So that is also what I look to a future development regarding prison service and staff. What is highlighted is that the work of a correctional officer or prison officer is the one of a social service. So that's the personnel we want to recruit, the one who are able to execute social work. The work of a prison officer, it's relational security work, which is also highlighted. What is needed is competence to manage relational work. So that is focus on pro-social modeling approaches, and everyone should focus on this. Penitentiary staff, security staff, everyone has a role in tutoring, mentoring the people who we are taking care of in a more pro-social behavior. Everyone have heard about dynamic security. Dynamic security, it's a concept, it's a working method which should then prioritize everyday communication and interaction with prisoners based on professional ethics. I mentioned that the work of a prison officer is a relational security work. I could add to this working method, which is dynamic security, also that it should be a prison-based therapeutic community work. In Norway, we call this milieu therapy or environmental work. Now it's directly translated from Norwegian into English. But this is a prison-based therapeutic community. And why should it be a prison-based therapeutic community? Prisons are no longer just prisons, they are psychiatric institutions. In Norway, 92% of the prisoners have mental challenges or issues. 72 have personal disorders, many of them multiple. 42% have anxiety. So this is the challenge which our staff deal with all the time. We need to be then united in what kind of knowledge our staff need, what kind of working method they need. And sometimes we send out mixed signals. We talk about relational work. At the same time, prisoners very often are looked upon as a threat towards security, a threat which need to be managed. And then we put our staff into a dilemma. So how do we refer to the prisoners will of course have an impact on our staff and how they relate to the prisoners. So are the prisoners, are they difficult, are they dangerous, or are they vulnerable? By law or by human rights court decisions, prisoners are vulnerable. And some prisoners are more vulnerable than others. And when it comes to prisoners with psychological or intellectual disabilities, states have a positive obligation to train its law enforcement officials in such a manner to ensure high level of competence in their professional conduct. We need to raise the level of competence. Our staff deserves it. They need to get the proper tool to work with this kind of challenging people. If not, we put our staff in harm's way because they respond not with the right tools to the situation. And I will use a wording from my colleagues. They are control and restraint instructors. And they say it's not about soft and hard measures, it's about smart measures. And communication skills is a smart measure. Communication and the ability to read and observe prisoners and as individual and as group are essential working tools for our staff. The same is the capacity to handle human relations. What we know is that for our staff, working with a group who many have what is known as trauma experience from childhood, what is needed for our staff and for our service is a trauma-serviced, trauma-informed correctional care. That is not just needed for the prisoners, it's also needed for our staff. They need trauma-informed care. Our staff dealing with difficult people with trauma background are influenced by this. Over time, they get tired. Over time, their capacity to handle human relations will be wear down. And we see this in so many countries. This is also a worldwide challenge for us. Prison staff, in many countries, have post-traumatic stress syndrome. They have it in the United States, they have it in Denmark, we expected to find it in Norway. So, trauma-informed service, it's not just for prisoners, it's also for staff. And what we know, this group of people who have a trauma background, they react very strongly to the way we communicate. And it's the body language they react to. That's the strongest trigger. So when we, for example, go to United States through the AMAND project, what our control and restraint instructors are asking of their American colleagues is, can you dress down? Can you remove some of your safety and protective gear? And can this be done without putting you in harm's way? The preliminary findings from this cooperation, it's quite positive. They are dressing down. They are finding out that this do not create more dangerous situation, but it actually keeps prison more safe. It reduces tension, creates a more safe working environment for staff. And it has huge impact on the health of prison staff. So we reduce expenses on staff regarding health and sick leave. So this is Norway. We have 120 study point accredited education. We also offer a bachelor. It's not compulsory. You can apply for this. It's not available for everyone, but what I can say is that it's very popular. Prison officers, they want knowledge. They seek knowledge. They are professionals. We should give them that professional competence. And it's a smart way of using money. If we do not invest in prisons, some years back, everyone talked about radicalization because prisoners become radicalized when they were in prison, and we were afraid that they will come out as terrorists. Well, then it makes sense to put a lot of money into the service then, so we prevent radicalization from happening inside of prison. They do not come out radicalized, they come out improved, better. So for society, it is beneficial to work with competence. Yeah, I will go in for landing now. Is it possible to create a European prison officer? Yes, I think so. The free movement of work, the free movement of education, all points towards a European standardization when it comes to work, also within prison officer work. It will take time, of course, but everyone here in this room working towards a standardized methods of working. It's knowledge-based, it's evidence-based, it's research-based. It just needs to be implemented. So, together with this fact and the fact that European Convention and human rights, which is universal, apply for everyone, is evolving, of course, I think that sooner or later we will end up with a European prison officer. So that was my presentation, and looking forward for the next speaker.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So, just to introduce you, the French National Correctional Administration Academy in France, in Agen. We are the only academy for all prison staff, prison and probation staff. So when it comes to surveillance staff, probation staff, technical, administrative, they all go through this academy in the ENAP. For initial training only, we train about 4,000 trainees a year. That's about twice if we count continuous training, so up to 7,000 or 8,000 trainees a year. So we don't deliver a degree, but we do we give an accreditation for the staff to work. So they go through a competitive exam to enter the training, they go through the assessment to complete the training, and then they can get to work with their assignment. But we do collaborate with universities, that is to say that our trainers, our staff intervene in some universities on key topics. A brief view on who our trainee prison officers are in France. Just another figure is that we train 1,800 trainee prison officers a year in initial training again, including 1,500 who begin their training during the year. So that's for 2022. They go through a 6-month sandwich course. That means it includes 10 weeks of internships. Most have an educational background that is higher than what we ask of them. So they would have for 40% a baccalaureate, so it's degree at 18 years old, and even 25% higher studies. But what we ask for is what we call brevet, which is GCSE, or at a 15 years old degree. So it's pretty low. It's at EQF3, I would say, for them to enter the training. And we have trained about 28,000 trainee prison officers between 2000 and 2018. So we do need numbers. The pragmatic view is that as far as their motivations go, it's job safety. So because they become civil servant, they have a job safety for life. They have career opportunities, becoming prison officers with internal exams. They can go high up to prison director. So it's quite interesting in terms of career prospects. Also, the salary obviously is a motivation for them to enter the trade. We have an increasing number of women. Some years ago, it used to be 30%. Now it's up to 45%. And people from overseas territories, because we have people coming from, they are French citizens from our overseas territories in different places of the planet. And we have more people coming from here. So that's a brief view of who our trainee prison officers are. With regards to the product training proposal, and as was asked, in terms of how we compare, how we see this proposal, we could spot some differences, obviously, and some common aspects. The duration of training, obviously, I know that it includes, continuous and initial training, but because we have to keep our training for now to 6 months, it's difficult to embed everything in 6 months. So we do have continuous training after that, but there's a duration of training due to the number of trainees. We want to say that we need to train them to become the best beginners, the best professional beginners, because they cannot be a full-out professional right after the training. And they need to embrace values. So those are the two core fundamentals on top of the skills, the training that we give. Also, the organization of the training. We divide our structure of training for prison officers between their penitentiary environment, their work environment, the daily work with inmates, and then the complex and urgent situations, because they would have to be prepared for all three. Also, there's specific modules that are covered in our academy that might not be covered, if I'm not mistaken, in this proposal. For example, how to intervene in a cell on fire. Because it's an issue in France, at least, where we have 1 or 2 fires a day. So it's important for them to be prepared to intervene in such case. Or on the opposite, for example, there is a module on how to capture escaped inmates. That's not something we do for the prison staff. Once they are outside the prison, it's up to the police and to the other services. So obviously some differences between the countries. Also, the diversification of the missions. It's something that attracts maybe the prison officers, or to become prison officers, how the trade is diversified. It's not only becoming a prison officer now. They can get continuous training to escort prisoners or to work in specific units, in a newly created unit for violent inmates, for example. So it's distinct in that way. Common aspects, obviously, how you put the emphasis, and so do we, on dynamic security and a positive relationship between inmates and staff. That is the beginning of the key skill to have. All the legal, regulatory, and ethics framework, radicalization and organized crime being priorities in the training also. And some points that do bring a reflection, because we need to go further into that, namely the digital solutions that emerge in detention, the strengthening of the role of rehabilitation for the prison officers, how to work with other professional categories, intercultural communication, and obviously developing the care for specific categories of inmate, aging, and disabilities, and so on. The last slide
In
now.
the last minute.
Yeah. Is how is regarding the recognition of the training. The issue in the French context is that only French citizens can work in French prisons. So it only goes so far in that regard. And our training is not recognized outside of the prison administration, so you need to work in the prison administration to use this training. We do have national certification, however, for some courses that can be valorized, used outside of the administration. In terms of perspective for European mobility and European certification, I want to add a positive note as well, because, for example, the European Commission has added the prison and probation training as part of their European strategy for judicial training. I happen to represent EPTA at this expert group, along with Pedro, and on the mandates, on the European mandates. So representing I represent the prison training in that expert group. So our priorities as academies, prison academies, are included in the strategy on the European level. So this certification, this impacts the European politics, the European policy on that regard. And this mobility should be furthered, including in terms of study visits, as we do, in terms of international cooperation, in terms of trainees coming into the training of our academies, not to necessarily to work in abroad, but also to get embedded in the training of another European country, as we do. So I will stop there because I see we are short on time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I'm just going to talk to a couple of points which I think have come through from our very specific perspective, and I also I wanted to clarify a couple of things from about the way that I guess we found to do things. So the first thing that we found, just in terms of offering a really good training and development offer, is that people, when we've gone out to do surveys, and we actually do recruit about 30% older people, career changers, up to people in their 60s who are just looking for a new job, want to do something different last few years of their career before they retire. Why not be a prison officer on this harebrained scheme? People don't want a job for life. This is much more prevalent, we're finding, in younger age groups than older. But and actually across globally, recent data looking at younger generations coming out of university, they are expecting their first job to be about 17 months out of university. So the idea, like a job for life, steady salary, pension at the end, is just not landing with the people who we're trying to attract. And the evidence suggests that there's going to be a point where that becomes more and more prevalent. So I do think we need to fundamentally change our offer and change the way that we're thinking about public services. And when people are asked what they do want, then they want a job which is going to open up options. They want a job where they're going to get good learning and development. So we're finding in the market that we're looking at, they want to have something where they're going to have lots of options, and they're going to get qualifications which are transferable. Now, interestingly, we did a piece of research quite recently with prison officers. We were looking at developing a middle leadership scheme. And we said, what is the one thing you would want from a training package? And we were really interested. This is obviously in English prisons, 100% of the prison officers, the first thing they wanted was a qualification which was recognised, not because they wanted to leave the prison service, and they were really clear about that, but because they wanted something that was valuable and that held value in the external market. And definitely in our context, there is a status, there's wanting to feel high status and wanting to feel recognised, and the idea of a qualification which is transferable was really important for that. That also in the English context at the moment, where we have real problem with retention of staff, we're seeing lots of people leaving the prison service, especially as job vacancies are open, salaries are good. The exit interviews are saying that people want better training. And if we unpick what that looks like, I just want to tell a couple of interesting stories, I guess. So one is our first cohort, and I went to visit them. They were in a prison in London, in our capital city, in quite a challenging prison, and they'd done the roll call at the end of the day. So they put all the prisoners in their cells, and then they count how many prisoners there are, and then they call up and say, we've got X number of prisoners, and they add up all the prisoners and say, great, everyone's here, no one's escaped. And that done well means you go from cell to cell, you check there's a prisoner in every cell, and you count them up. That done badly, often because of short staffing and other issues, means you know how many prisoners you're meant to have. You call up and say, yeah, we got them all, 176, and that's the job. So on this day, one of our participants, he was 6 days in, and he noticed they'd done the roll check and 2 prisoners came out of the shower. They weren't hiding in the shower, they were just having a shower, and they'd already called in the numbers, and they called in the correct numbers, but obviously 2 were in the shower, so they hadn't been the correct numbers, so they'd done it wrong. And when I met them, they were at their session with their mentor, experienced prison officer, and this new prison officer said, I found out something amazing today. When your boss makes a mistake, you never report them. They report themselves. Because my boss made a mistake. He called in the wrong number. And I was about to write it up in the book. And I was told, no, you never report your bosses for making mistakes. Bosses always report themselves. Now, that is not the rule in English prison system. But that was what he'd been told by his boss. And he was telling all of his fellow new staff, we've been trained but wrong. What they taught us was wrong at training school. And all of those new staff, without an experienced staff member in the room to say, whoa, like, that's not true, would have thought that was true. And when a new prison officer came in, they would have said, that thing you were taught at college, that's rubbish. You never self-report. So there's something huge about what happens after the initial training and what the support looks like from an experienced colleague who's been trained properly. Now, it might be that person who said you always report yourself, he might have been told that by a senior member of staff. So it wasn't necessarily bad faith. We had one other example, and then I'm going to shut up, of a participant who, brand new, went in and did her first cell search with another colleague. And the colleague said, don't search the top bunk. We don't have time to search the top bunk. We only do bottom bunk searching here. That's not what I've been taught. I've been taught you have to search. And she said, I just want to practice it like I've been taught. So I'm going to search the top bunk because I'm new. And when she was searching the top bunk, what a surprise, she found things there. Again, you can imagine it's very difficult as a new member of staff to say, no, I want to search top bunk. It's also very difficult to, and when you do, the response is often hard, like, you idiot, you believe what they told you at training school. Well, let me tell you the reality of how things are done around here. That's what we're seeing it may not be true in any of your prisons, but that's what we're seeing in our prison system. And that's why I think this is so exciting. The idea of a kind of base level that all prison officers do, I think, is a brilliant idea. I love the idea of better training and development. It will get us the best people to be prison officers, and that's what we need. And the ongoing mentoring and support of existing expert staff who know what the right thing to do is and can hold the line, I think, is crucial. And what we've now added to our training is the whole last week and a half is practicing with a staff member who's more senior than you, saying, we don't do it like that around here, and somehow being able to say, oh, it's less paperwork if I do it, because it's really hard as a new member of staff to say, well, I've just come out of training school and let me tell you. So how can you do that without people wanting to kill you is really important. So that is my 2 pence worth about what we've learned. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
I have to congratulate all of you for the program, for the project. It's really huge, and it's a big opportunity to be with you, because having the opportunity to review my loved friends in Portugal is always a good thing. La oportunidad de ver os meus queridos amigos de Portugal es sempre fantástico. Obrigado. I'm trying to be as quite disciplined at gate. So what I did, I will prepare for you, is to answer the questions that the moderator sent to us. And first of all, as the rest of the colleagues did, I want to explain you to which organization I belong, and I'm representing here. I'm representing the Center of Legal Studies and Specialized Training. This is an autonomous institution that belongs to the Justice, Rights and Memory Department of Justice of Catalonia. You see that till 6 months ago, we were only the Ministry of Justice. Now we are the Ministry of Justice, Rights and Memory, and that means some important things that is not the matter of today, but that we should elaborate in another moment. Our duties is to provide training, initial and continuous, to staff working at prisons, juvenile justice and probation, to do the same for the staff working at courts, to do the same for the staff working at the Justice, Rights and Memory Department in general, and to produce research and apply studies on matters of interest of the department. I may underline that you may see that there are a lot of things in common with you because we have the duty to train prison staff, but at the same time, because we have these other duties, I think that this is important to take into consideration that we can mix in some of our trainings and some of our activities, people working on course, people working on the whole chain of the execution of the sentence, which sometimes is interesting and sometimes create some different points of view, but dialogue, as we saw today, is a very important thing. The question of the moderator was how relevant is the training proposal and learning research for our organization, and we did we compare the proposal of PO21 project with the training provided by the Center of Legal Studies. Of course, not with with the opportunity to go deeper as we have today and going to all the links, and maybe some of the observations are quite collected. But in a sense, the needs, the goals, and target group is the same, so the challenge is the same. We were talking before to start with some colleagues that one of the important things of international exchanges is that you sit down beside someone you never have talked before, and 5 minutes later you feel that you belong to the same family because you belong to the same profession, because the needs are the same in different places. And clearly the project is quite well-oriented in this. Apparently, I need to have a more further look into the program. What we introduce is more emphasis in the multidisciplinary work with other staff position working at prisons. We think this is very, very important. We hear today that in essence, the prison officers is a 24-hour, 7 days service, and social workers, psychologists are used to be in the prisons from Monday to Friday, and this for this reason, prison officers have to act in some ways as a social worker, as a psychologist, and many, many other things that are completely right. Not vice versa, but looking the thing in the other way around is that the work, because the prison officer is 24 hours, 7 days, is a very, very good complement of the work of all other specialists, and these specialists need to have a clear link and a lot of information coming from the observation and the intervention of the prison officers. So we insist a lot about the need of this participation and work together. Maybe it's in the program, but I want to put this as an emphasis. The second question was how relevant is training and proposal and learning resources for our organization? Are new aspects? Are they enough? What would you like to explore more? The contents are completely appropriate. The first thing I did during the weekend when I received the information is to pass it to the unit who has the duty to plan the initial training of the prison officers staff, because I said this is a brilliant material. Please have a look on it, because we'll take a lot of opportunities from this. Suggestions. I was very happy to hear this morning from Doreen that there are some examples related with sexual harassment among inmates and staff and among staff themselves. I'm very happy to hear that there are examples or cases on this, but I was not able to see specific chapters or very dedicated to this matter. We are working very hard in this matter nowadays in Catalonia, because we think that this is something that is a reality, that the system is quite reluctant to accept that is occurring inside the facilities. And as far as we are looking for this matter, more things appear. And because of the more presence of women in prisons, nowadays it's a very, very important matter for us. And we discover a lot of things that were when we may see that governors and the whole institution tried to avoid or try to say that there is not a problem, but we think that there is a big problem here. So I'm happy to see that this is developed in cases, but I would like to see more in the program. At the same time, training in the use of inclusive language and dealing with diversity. I think this is a very important thing. Nadia talked this morning about prison, plenty of people from other nationalities with diversity in terms of culture. Doreen explained it when he started to work. There were only 2 categories in terms of gender. Now he counted 5. So there is a lot of matter related with diversity. And language and diversity are things that are very related and for us are very important to include. And forgive me, because many of you know that in my past life, in one of my past life, I represented or I have very narrow links with probation. I do think that there is a need as well in the training package to show the work of other agencies, mainly probation and restorative justice, in the whole process of treatment of offenders. Sometimes people working in prison only see things that happen inside prison and don't see things that happen outside. At the end of February, we are going to present the large research of recidivism that we do in our center, and as a kind of a spoiler, please be silent. The result seems to be good, and it means that the ratio is about 20% of recidivism, which is a good figure. But believe me, try to tell to one of the prison officers working in the wing of a Catalonian prison that only one of the 5 prisoners that he or she attend return back. The idea of the assumption of this professional is that this is not true, because he or she is used to be the same faces again and again and again. So it's very, very, very important to, even in terms of giving hope, that 4 of these 5 do not return. And I think that it should be important. Yes. The matter of... I will skip 2 of this. The future recognition of prison officers training, certification, and professional mobility throughout Europe. Yes, it is completely yes. It is completely necessary, but I do think that what we need clearly is talking about the steps, future steps. First, we need to push, I don't know how, but we need to push for the approval of the common standards in this prison officers training certification by the EU bodies. It's a very sensitive matter, and I know that the Council of Europe is very in favor. I know the difficulties for the European Union to do that and to come into these matters, because the states are quite reluctant to this kind of approaches, but it's completely necessary. Secondly, to remove the internal obstacles at national legislations levels for recruiting EU citizens for the prison services. In many countries, as far as I know, the condition to apply is to be a national. And in countries where this is not a condition, there are sub-conditions that in fact implies that only nationals can apply for the job. For instance, and the most important, the capability related with the language. And at the end of the day, and this is my third point, if we want to make real this mobility, we need to make a strategical plan for ensure that people is able to learn different languages and to be able to work in different cultural environments. We have an opportunity. The new generation is not seeking for a life job. It's looking for mobility. It's looking for have opportunities in new countries. We may take advantage for the reality, but we need to do something related to languages. Otherwise, it will be only a matter of paper. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. If there are any questions, Lars?
Yeah, just I don't think I need a microphone. Just one comment on what Natasha said. From my perspective, as a correction officer, active correction officer, I think you just pointing out a very, very important part, and this is if the new recruits come to the education or after they finish their education. Well, this is about a project for the future, but it actually starts today, because if you do not give the senior correction officers a chance to be on board, then it's a dead end. It's a dead end road in the end. I sometimes reflect myself. I am a TO for new recruits as well. I sometimes reflect myself, and I had these thoughts: if he or she is giving me one more question, the next empty cell, it's yours, and I will lock you up and swallow the key. But then in a split of a second later, it's like, no, he or she has all the right in the world to give me these questions and also to get a quality good answer. And this is what we need to be focused on, that we are focused on a future project, but it starts today, and that includes the senior correction officers. They need to be informed what the project is about. Otherwise, it won't work. So we all have to work on this, and I think that's very important because you're just pointing that out. Thank you.
Thank you.